there, and it's really,
Yeah, of course.
but he did a really professional recording of it. So I was trying to find it in my old email. He sent me a WAV file, but I can't find it. I'll have to ask him if he still has it. But um, yeah, actually, yeah, I look back 7 years ago. Hello, everybody joining in our conversation as we're talking. But you know what I find? I find it's interesting. I think I said this before. You look back in life. You look like I look back today, and I see certain little things. And go, that's pretty interesting. So that whole idea was a little bit about what you do, and what we communicate. People like, let's be kind to each other, right? Let's we don't know what people have been through. Let's not judge anybody, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, I agree. And you know what's funny? I'm not sure if I don't have that file because you sent it to me because I was doing my radio show.
Right.
So I'll have to look. I definitely would have saved it on this computer. The real question is, have I had to dump everything on my computer between now and then? That's the real question. I know exactly. Hey,
I thought,
everybody joining
go ahead.
us. Welcome. I just want to say welcome. Welcome.
Welcome.
Oh, cheers. Nice cup. I'm on a,
Like that?
yeah, I
You
am
know what artist is that?
the one that made the cup, obviously.
Famous artist. Let's see if anybody can figure what this artist is, who he is. Put it in the chat. If you guess who the artist is,
I'm
I
going
don't
to
know.
send you a prize. I'll send you a prize.
Me or Michelle. I'll send you coffee or tea, and
And
you got
I'll
to figure out what it is. So
Okay, so post that in the chat if you figure out what that was. I was just going to say I
I'll
went
take it.
to a smaller urine sample, not as big.
There we go. I have water. I've been sick a little bit this last few days. Like not as sick as I was before, but just cough, and my sleep's not been good. And so I was just telling Michelle. Hopefully nobody from work sees it, but I wasn't feeling well, so I was supposed to go into a town hall at my head office, and I just wasn't. We don't want people to go in if they're not feeling well, so I had to do a Teams meeting, which several hours later. So, anyways, I've survived. I'm better today. So,
That's good. So, funny story from last week that you probably forgot about, but I'm going to mention it anyways. So, fun fact, we have this sister that has changed her name multiple times. She is absolutely amazing. We love her, but she is not on this group, not for any particular reason. I'm sure we both invited her. I know I did, but it probably got caught up in her notifications. I'll re-invite her. I meant to because I was going to tell her this story because it's so funny. So we had a participant in our group last week who has the same name as one of our sister's previous names. And so, and if the girl who we're talking about that did participate, she's a friend of mine, she's going to know exactly what we're talking about. Because I used to say, whenever I see your name, it screws me up because it's my sister's name. So, Tom, in his wisdom, was reflecting on her that she was posting things. And at one point, you even said, feel free to chime in. And I could see you, and I didn't have the heart to call you out in that moment. I'm calling you out today. So you kept looking over. And of course, our not sister didn't reply because she didn't know what the heck was going on. So that's our fun story to talk about today, acknowledging we're all human beings and these things happen. So funny. So
and
funny.
the thing is, Michelle and I talked about it after because we do a little debrief,
Mm,
and it was just she told me that I was mistaken, and then I realized I know what my sister's current last name is, and I'm going, oh my word! And then I checked up this person who it was, Michelle's friend,
yeah.
and I thought, I'm thankful I didn't say the name. I said my sister's here, but I don't want to name her, and I'm going like I don't know if that made me feel like even stupider. Just like, I wish I would have just been busted, but you know what? If you can't laugh at yourself,
Right? Then you have
then
no
you're
one
not going to be
laughing.
able to handle. You won't be able to handle anybody else laughing at you.
Exactly right. And it's such an important skill, right?
Yeah.
It really is. You know, it's funny, this is not our topic, But it's interesting. It's something I notice about the kids today. And of course, we're not going to get into a big thing about it, but I think those are skills that maybe they're not all learning. You know what I mean? Like it's important to learn how to fail, how to cheer on other people, how to be like, you know what, they're making fun of me, but it's from a place of love, not from being mean or bullying. And that's okay, right? We need to be able to have those skills to cope. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
we become, and this, we, if you've noticed in our conversations we've had, over the time, and they're all recorded, they're on YouTube, they're on, I think you still find them on here for 30 days or whatever it says. I don't know what the notification says, but if you find, you'll find this thread through almost everything we talk to, and it's about wellness, right?
Yeah.
And there's an incredible amount of anxiety and stress in the world. We talk about this all the time. We talked about budget. We talked about different. We're going to talk about beliefs today. Michelle thought it'd be a good conversation to talk about. But in my experience, and in my getting a little bit older and trying to be wiser, is sometimes I may make an assumption that people are not. They're making fun of me. I become insecure.
Yep.
And they're not. They're like, me and Michelle talked after, and we just laughed. And then I told her, I said, let's share, because that's just too funny, right?
Yeah.
So I find that when we can learn to do that, like if somebody's like, you can tell if it's malicious, somebody's trying to be really mean, and usually that person's got issues. But you're welcome to laugh at Michelle anytime you want, or you can laugh at me actually too.
For it. Go for it.
There. So do you have any questions for me to start off?
I do actually. Yeah, hold on. I have like
Yeah.
a lot, but we're doing 3 a week. So
Right.
that's garbage. Okay. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Me too. Absolutely. Cookies or chips?
uh, Evil and evil. You know what? I prefer like salty than sweet. Chips.
Yeah, me too. Crunch and salt for the win.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then text or phone call?
I do 100% more text than calls because of the work I'm in,
Yep.
but I prefer seeing somebody or hearing their voice.
Oh, I'm exactly the opposite. Text for me. When the phone rings, I'm like, what
Yeah.
is that? Very good.
Text is text is convenient for me.
Mhm.
But when I'm, like I said, when I'm doing, I find it interesting that we're doing this, like Zoom or Teams or FaceTime, things that we do.
Yep.
I read an article right in the middle of COVID, I think, and it was this whole thing about the visualization of somebody, and this psychologist was, oh, he was, I think he was working through trauma with a child, a teenage girl that lost both parents in a car accident. And so it was a story or kind of a paper on this in the States. And what he found, it was interesting, kind of the response he would get. It was in person, so he wrote it during COVID, but it was before that. And it was interesting to talk to this person and trying to overcome some, trauma, and or when they would bring a picture.
Mm.
So I thought that's pretty interesting. So I like this. Uh, you know, I like seeing people's faces. Hearing the voices is good too. Text is more business for me. So
Yeah, and you know what? I agree. It depends, of course, what you're talking about because texts can get misunderstood very easily. They're very choppy. Um, and so I think maybe because I'm like my full-time job, I'm on the phone all the time. So that could be part of the reason. But even with my wellness coaching, even doing the ones with Zoom, we might have like I might have 50 people in the room and half of them have their cameras on. That makes a difference. I can see if they're understanding me. I can, you know what I mean? I can just connect with them better. And I think, through the whole COVID thing, we really noticed a difference in communication because we couldn't see people's noses and lips, right?
yeah,
Like I'm a face reader when I'm talking to somebody. So honestly, that really screwed me up. on a lot of levels. Not that I went very far because I didn't, but in those interactions, yeah, it made a difference. I need to see your lips.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing too. I love psychology. I kind of liked it even as a kid. And me and Michelle will share bits and bobs of our stories, but I grew up in the 70s. So I played guitar and it was like rock and roll and whatever. But, and, you know, I was a hippie. So, you know, it was a lot of illegal ganja back then. But, anyways, not saying good or bad on either side. But, anyways, I love psychology. I remember reading a book. I don't know if you would know this book, Michelle, called Games People Play. The book, it's an older book. Look it up, and it's
Okay.
about all of it. It's about body language.
Ooh, okay. I love that.
So it's interesting. Not that you can like all of that stuff is there's always exceptions, right? But it'd be like in a room talking to somebody, arms are closed, or this or that,
Yeah.
or um, so I found that remembering I read that book when I was like 15, maybe
Mm.
that I think I bought it years ago, but I gave it to somebody like 30 years ago. But anyway, interesting book, Games People Play, if you're interested in psychology and body language.
Absolutely. I love, and part of this is like my work with um the in the wellness industry, but even with when I watch, watch a lot of like murders, murder stories, true, true like criminal mind stuff, and it's all about the behavior. Al will say to me, how can you even watch that stuff? If it's gory, like I'll fast forward, or I literally will mute it or cover my eyes sometimes. But what I'm interested in is, how did they grow up? What was their environment like? You know, all those different things. Because, and it actually ties in with our topic today so much, because all of those things create who we are today. And some of them are positive things and some are negative. You can take, as I'm sure you know, you could take two siblings growing up in exactly the same household. Let's say, just for an example, the parents were like drug dealers, or it was a very toxic environment. You could have those exact two kids either follow the path or not follow the path because they had the same environment, but they're making the conscious choice to go a different direction. You see it a lot of times with children of alcoholics. So here's a fun fact. When I was splitting up from my first ex, I had to go to a course for a child of an alcoholic, because my dad that adopted me was an awesome guy, but he was also an alcoholic. And so it was part of my court thing that they made me go to this program. And they talked about the different order you are as the children, who is the most likely to follow. So I was the youngest one. I saw too much. I was the least likely to follow his path, where the older ones were the more likely to, because they weren't necessarily exposed to the same thing or whatever those beliefs are that go with it. So it's really interesting when you can, again, in that cold state of mind, look at yourself analytically and your own story and journey and figure out what ties in with where you are today, or how is that limiting you? Or, but I have another question. I'm diverting here. First concert.
Ooh, I believe my first concert in Toronto was Kiss.
Oh,
I've seen, this is unfair. I've seen about 100. I've seen almost every top band when I was a teenager. I
yeah.
worked I worked for Maple Leaf Gardens as a ticket checker,
Oh, cool.
but
Okay.
I didn't check the tickets. I just went in and hung around. Didn't do my job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's pretty cool. How old were you?
16.
Oh, so when I
What you
16, I went to Detroit, which is like a hop, skip, and a jump over the river. Deep Purple.
love it?
Yeah,
I
great.
haven't seen Deep Purple. There's about five major bands that I haven't seen. We had tickets to go see Led Zeppelin. We're digressing. We
Yep.
had tickets to go see Led Zeppelin in Buffalo, New York. I wish I could remember the year. It was the last date on their U.S. tour.
Yep.
Led Zeppelin was one of my favorite bands. And Robert Plant's son, they played in New York. I think Buffalo was 2 days later. And they had his son died in England of crib death. And so they canceled the last date and left. So, of course, sad for him. Zeppelin, again, big influence. But I saw the Rolling Stones at the El Macombo downtown Toronto.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. So but the thing you were going to say. So I'm going to give you a word that we know, criminal minds, all that.
Yeah.
So this word can feel. If you're going to hear this word, I'm setting up. You're going to think of these criminal shows, and you're going to think it has to do with bad people, and it's not. But there's this great word called profiling. Profiling is an incredible, powerful word because what Michele said there a few seconds ago, you can take 3 kids living in the same home, same good, bad, whatever. Now, I'm the oldest of 7, and Michele and I've shared bits about, but I'm the oldest. So because I couldn't protect my siblings and some different things about with my story, being the eldest and feeling the responsibility and this stuff, I had to work through. I didn't know I had to work through until I was in my 40s. A thing called inverted parenting, which meant I took as a child. I took the emotional weight of being a parent, which was not my job to do. Right.
Right.
So it's interesting on a healthy way when we're talking about belief in last week about resetting ourselves. If you want to know where you want to go, you probably do this with WW, right? You got to know, you have to have some tangibles. You got to know where you're at, and you got to know where you're going to get, how to get there. And so if you're in sales, if you're looking for mental wellness, physical wellness, whatever you want to do, right? Peace of mind, saving up for a holidays, right? So when we profile, and profile just means we look at something or somebody and we look at some of the signs, right? And so for me, like when Michele was asking a question, cookies or chips, and I said, ooh, both evil. They're both not evil.
They're not evil.
Because cookies not evil and chips not evil. Maybe the profilers eat, no, the people eating them, but it's interesting when I look back, and I don't overanalyze stuff, but when I look back and go, okay, this is where I came from. This has been my experience. This is my experience till my 20s. This is my experience from 50 to 60. I'm going to be 63 this year. I'm probably physically healthier now, turning 63, than when I was 45, and going through journey of cancer, all that stuff, right? Even my mind working through severe depression. So it's interesting to kind of not look back and navel gaze and judge yourself, but to go, okay, wow, this is where I'm at. Like in the chat, some people have said, or on the page, like be kind to yourself, because everything you've been through, the good, bad, you've said this actually, got you today. Now you may not want to do some of the same stuff. That's okay, but you're a product of your environment, and you're a product of your belief system. See how I segued in?
Well done. High five. Well done. Very good. And that's the reality. And you know what? We have so many things we mentioned it the last couple of weeks, and I don't know, because so for anybody, I just wanted to reflect on this. For anybody who's just starting to watch our weekly check-in, Tom and I are siblings, but we were not raised together. So in case it's sort of confusing as you're like trying to figure out what the heck we're talking about. So of course it'd be a little bit different for you, because I actually left the home at 6 months old. So we're together for a short period and then separated. But like in my house, my parents served the food. And then we didn't have to sit until the cows came home, but we had to sit probably for a significant amount of time. And then everybody had to sit. So my brothers had to sit and wait for me, pushing those green beans around. Like, hate green beans. Don't make them when they come visit you. But those things, they stay with you, and it's interesting. So here I am now, a million years later. My parents are both deceased. Nobody's hanging over my shoulder telling me that somebody's starving in Africa. That was part of the verbiage as well. But today, as a wellness coach, I understand portion distortion. I understand that I don't need to eat a platter, right, of food in a sitting. I can break it up over sittings. So realizing that for some reason at my age, I still feel guilty throwing the rest of the food off into the garbage. That's a limiting belief, right? It's a great example of what we're talking about today because it affects so many different things and it's so tied in with everybody, but or like with everything that you're doing in your life, whether it's financially, relationships, achievements, work, whatever, but we can't chase them all. And we have a lot of limiting beliefs that aren't really limiting, like because they're not affecting you. Do you know what I mean? So it's a matter of um figuring out like when you're trying to reset, like we talked about last week, being your own research and development department and realizing, okay, I feel like I'm stuck, something's going on, and then looking back, like, what is that thought that I'm having when you think about like money, for an example? There's so many limited beliefs, right? Like you're taught different things. Well, money doesn't grow on trees, Tom, right? Or today, and more so in the last 10 years, that 1% of the people hold all the wealth of the world. I'm not disputing that, but if that's what you believe, and you believe 1% of the world holds all the money, and they're holding it from other people, and they're greedy, and they're not sharing, and why would you want to be part of the 1%? And I'm not saying you'd want to be part of the 1%, but when you associate that with abundance, you're going to block yourself, right? Like we're really good at, I'm a human excuse factory, and I'm also really good at sabotaging myself. True
Yeah,
story, right? But again, when you're not emotional, because when you're emotional, it'll go crazy. But when you're in that nice calm state, just looking back and thinking, are you kidding me? Like there was no kid in Africa, or giving my parents grace that that's the way they were probably raised. That's what everybody did. They didn't have the knowledge, and it's interesting with the food thing as well. And I don't know with our mom, but like my adopted mom, she was always on a diet. She looked great to me. I never saw any reason, but she was always like in that diet mentality. That's why, like with wellness coaching today, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. That's why the chips are okay, right? That's why, like, there's no cheat days but it's interesting how all that stuff is all part of us. And it's so deep in there unless you actually do the work, which are so worth the work, do the work to be able to identify, hey, is that really why, I feel like that? Or, maybe you didn't get a job and then thinking, well, of course I didn't get it. I'm not worth the job. Yeah, you are. It's just
yeah,
someone else's turn, or there's a better job waiting for you. But you have to put effort into changing that stinking thinking, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we, it's interesting because one of the courses I took, first course I took 6, 7 years ago after I had surgery, I had colon cancer. I think I've said this a dozen times. Anyways, and so I was bedridden for several months, and I was depressed. So I ended up having the courage or the strength mentally to take these courses. So I took cognitive behavior therapy,
Hmm.
and it was very interesting to, because I've always liked psychology and different things like that. It was very interesting to kind out to understand some of the mechanical components. So I wrote down what you said about limiting belief, and in brackets I put what we do, and I'll give an example: sabotaging beliefs.
Yeah.
And what we do, I'll ask a question. There's a group of people there, and if you want to answer or respond, you can respond to me, Michelle, whenever you want.
Yep.
And I'm going to give another statement that's kind of one of my go-to statements last few years, but sabotaging belief may not even be in the forefront of your mind. So what'll happen is, I can use an example, it makes sense, but it's not my favorite example, but somebody's in a bad relationship and they're being, it's just a difficult relationship. They don't feel cared or valued, blah, blah, blah. So they get out of that relationship and they go, never again.
Yep.
A year down the road, they end up in that same relationship, different face,
Yep.
right? People, and stats are stats, like they're stats, right? So stats will show that people working through uh, with one of the partners dealing with alcoholism, like today, not the way it was 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
Unless you get counseling or support or where we want to talk it, your nature, and it could be to help, you could be like codependent, is to bend that way, right? So one of my statements in the last little while is, and the statement's got nothing to do about faith, so let me put that aside. But I came up with the statement after, I can't remember what course I just finished. I think it was phobias, actually, working through fear. And I had this little buzz in my brain, and it was, the statement was the God of our understanding. The God of our understanding, to leave religion out of it.
Yep.
The God of our understanding is basically this: it's from your experience and from your knowledge, whatever that is combined,
Yep.
you come up with a core value.
Right.
And with a core value, and again, there's lots of different, like, and I want people in this group, me and Michelle have said this lots, like there's room for everybody. You can have a certain faith belief, a certain food belief, a certain hockey team belief. No, you can't do that. That's out of question. But the word grace, we want to be accepting of each other, even if we don't agree. We want to respect us, right? And but here's the funny thing about the God of our understanding. You come up, you go, okay, I did this, I went through this experience, I went like bad experience, good, I did this training, this course, this job, whatever we do. And it can end up being like, if you live in that box and that's all you know, that's all you're going to know.
That's right.
You're not going to know. You don't have to go skydiving or bungee. I wouldn't do those anyways, but you don't have to go prove anything to anybody else. But what's that famous saying? If you don't want to keep having the same results, stop doing the same stuff. Yeah. So Michelle has shared before about, we talked about meditating or breathing or like I tell people on high anxiety and stress, and there's a lot of that going on. Take a second. You can do it in a car. You can go to the bathroom at work. You can do it at your desk if nobody's bugging you. Just close your eyes, close your your visual sensors, and just focus on your breathing. Yeah. And in a very wonderful way, the way we are genetically and biologically made, yeah, we recenter, we reset. It's awesome, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think it's so interesting too. As you get older, I think this acceptance of self and like it just seems to get, I don't know if easier is the word, but maybe you have more clarity. Or I think as well, you realize like by this time of my life, I should have a story, right? Like I should have some, I don't know if I should have, the story I have, but I like you expect to have a story. And it's so interesting because what you're saying about relationships, like if you're always with just for an example, if you're always with a guy that's a jerk, you're the common denominator. Why are you, and I'm big into the law of attraction, as you know, and my friends who come here. So why am I attracting all the wrong people? Is it because I'm a fixer? That was my first relationship. I was pretty sure I was going to fix that person. I did not. Is that what it is? Or what you want, is that an illusion? Sometimes people stay in relationships because they feel like, and their limiting belief is it's better to be in a relationship than be alone. Well, you know what? Sometimes alone is where joy lives. Right? Better to be alone than with, a toxic relationship or whatever that looks like. So I think, as we get older, that self-reflection, and I don't know if it's as you get older, time and life and people get more precious. That right. And for both of us, we've had major health scares. I'm definitely changed over the last couple of years. So that's all part of it too, right? And just accepting that.
Yeah, one of I I love movies, and there's certain movies that are sad movies, but I'll watch over again. And owning this, I do it as a man because I think I'm in tune emotionally, but sometimes I need to remind my in tuneness to be in tune. And so there's a great movie from a few years ago. It was written from a book called Into the Wild,
Oh, yeah.
where the guy, he's going to Harvard, dad wants him to go become whatever, doctor, lawyer, whatever, and he does it, and he wants to go on this journey. And so at the end of the, like, it's a true story actually. So at the end of the book, I'm not going to read it, but anyways, it's his journey. And you've seen it, right?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, if you haven't, and anybody out there, and
Into the Wild,
watch
right?
Into the Wild, you got to watch it, because this idea, what Michelle just said about like a story. We all have a story, first of all. It may not all be a good story. It may be, and our story is always, it's in motion. It's alive, right? As long as you're alive. And then if you're famous and you're dead, then your story continues on with biography or whatever, right?
Right.
But the, 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 the journey, whoever wrote the book and whoever put it to film, is so interesting because it's all about his experiential, and he experienced the vast variety. He's one little part. He's on the Colorado River. He wants to canoe down the river, and they said, "Well, you need a permit." So he goes to the permit office, whatever it is, whatever those people are called, right? And he goes there, and they go, "Okay, well, we can't. You have to have a permit, and we can't issue a permit until next year." And he goes, "Like, I just want to go down the river. What do I need a permit for, right?" So then he goes down. So I'm not saying go be illegal, but it's this young man's journey.
Yeah.
And then down there he meets this man and woman, boyfriend girlfriend, that are somewhere from Sweden, and they are. It's the only naked shot in the whole thing, so don't get all wigged. But the interaction, the other one to watch too. Sorry, because this is going into about limiting belief.
Yeah.
Another great movie is called The Way. The Way with Emilio Estevan, and it's about this journey. The Way is a pilgrim's walk in Spain, Portugal, France, and it's called The Way of Saint John. But this movie is not. It's spiritual, but not like in a churchy spiritual thing. But it's about this man who goes to pick up his son's ashes, who starts his trip, and he's a dentist, so kind of boring. And then he wants to finish this journey for his son, and so it's about on this journey. So the things we get to, here's the good news for everybody out there and for us. I don't care if you had a craptastic day this week. Yesterday was a hard one for me. I was team meetings for way too long.
Yep.
But that doesn't define the rest of your day or week or month or year, right?
Yeah.
When you have health issues, like Michelle and I've said, or if you're wrestling through trauma or mental health, it doesn't have to define you. You can let it define you.
Mm.
And here's the thing, like talking about limiting belief, right? I had a friend of mine. I worked through a recovery house, and he's passed away. He was from Toronto. Nobody would know him. Portuguese young man, and the trauma and abuse he got as a child was his mom, since his early age that he can recall. I counseled this guy for years. Is his mom said, "You're useless. You'll end up being nothing."
Yep.
Didn't physically beat him. Didn't. He was a roly-poly kid. So this voice echoed through his head. And so when I got to meet him a few years back, he passed away a couple years. He overdosed. But we can sabotage ourselves. So Michelle and I've said this a few times. If you're not going to believe in yourself, nobody will.
Yeah.
Don't wait for somebody to believe in you. You need to go, you know what? I'm worth the journey. I don't know how many days I got left on this green planet.
Yeah.
I might have 100, might have 20 years. It doesn't matter. But I choose not to be stuck. As Michelle said, she reminds herself with notes and puts those in her mirrors, and I encourage people. But anyway, so meandering, but there you go. 2 movies to watch about the journey.
So fun fact, I watched 2012 again this week that you and I had just reflected on Woody Harrelson in the camper, the reporter.
Crazy
Totally.
dude.
Yeah, it's so funny. That's my squirrel moment. But going back to what you were saying, when you wake up in the morning, do you let your attitude for the day rest on chance, or do you decide that you're going to have a great day?
You're asking me a question?
I am. Do I need to?
Um, yeah, I know. I like what you're saying. So it's like creating a muscle. So I've been going to the gym. I'm working on losing weight, trying to be healthy. I want one more surgery, no more surgery after that.
Yeah.
When you work and exercise a mental muscle,
Yeah.
or an emotional muscle, or a physical muscle, after a while, this is the long version of that. After a while, you don't have to constantly think about it. So when I wake up, I don't wake up going, "Oh crap,
Right.
blah blah." Even in my busiest days, I wake up and I have my little routine in the morning. I
Yeah.
have a coffee first thing because that's what I do,
Yeah.
and I actually look forward to what the day has. Even I'm in sales. Even I'm not scared of overcoming objections. That's my job. That's one of parts of my job, right? But you know what it is? I can't. I'm not responsible for somebody else's attitudes, issues. I'm responsible for mine. And when I miss it, I screw up.
Yeah.
I get mad. The guy nearly cut me off.
Mhm.
I emotionally blurt, and then I go, okay, no, forget it, God. I don't need to deal with that. I'm not going to own it.
Yeah.
So I wake up with the attitude
Good.
to
Yeah.
be to enjoy what's coming.
Exactly right. Because if we're self-fulfilling prophecies. So if you wake up thinking, oh my gosh, I have to get on Teams, it's going to make my butt sore after a bunch of hours. I can't roll my eyes. People are going to see whatever that looks like. Then it's going to happen. And it's going to be more of a painful experience. Where if you wake up and you're like, well, it's not ideal, but I get to work from home today. I can have my coffee in my favorite cup that nobody answered who made it. And I can find the joy in that. It doesn't change the activity, but perspective, we're always going back to that. Perspective, it just makes it great. And, it's interesting because everything's vibration and energy. So, if you're walking say you're walking through the mall and you run into somebody and they go, "Hey, how are you doing today?" And you go, "Oh, living the dream," sarcastic. "Oh, it's okay. At least I woke up today." That's very low vibration. It takes exactly the same effort to say, "I'm awesome." And you know what the person you're talking to is going to say? Huh, well, if Tom's awesome, he's no different than me. I can be awesome too, because being awesome is an option, right? It's 14. Squirrel moment again. But
Me and you, yeah.
yeah, it's a conscious decision though, right? To think about like, how am I going to respond? One of my pet peeves, and this ties in with how a few weeks ago we talked about the words you speak, right? And
I
verbiage.
just wrote it down.
Okay, very good, very good. Is when people put, and I'm not going to repeat it, but they'll put on like social media, FML, right? F my life. Like when something's not
Oh,
going good. I, oh my gosh, it drives me nuts when people do that because I think you miss the mailman, F your life, what? Like, or whatever it is. I mean, these are not big, life things. And you'll have to read what Florence says after.
I just saw it. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so that perspective, it really matters in those ways, and again, getting back to the limiting beliefs. Do you feel like you're too old to do something? Do you feel like you're too young? What's that about, right? Or feeling like you're not talented, or why can you imagine living your whole life with why would I even try? It's not going to work.
And the funny thing is, we read these stories of people who do heroic things. I watch, I kind of multitask, so I can own, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm by myself during the week. I have my son on the weekend, right?
Yep.
So I'll have on like, I don't know, The Voice, America's Got Talent, whatever, right? And there was this young Native African American man who'd lost his leg, and he ended up doing this beautiful dancing with one leg in his crutches. And I always go, man, like first thing it's courage. But one of the things, so I wrote a couple of things down because me and Michelle make notes, or she starts with notes, I start with a blank paper.
I
I
have a
remember
book.
years ago, talk about, and it's not, I'm going to talk about words, but not mind over matter, but a bit like that. I remember reading a story. We probably all heard stories like this, where somebody is trapped. Somebody runs out. They see a car run over a kid, and somebody, it could be a family, runs out, and all of a sudden, supernatural strength. They lift
Yes.
the vehicle. They get the kid out. Now, some of that is actually a chemical that can be not doesn't happen all the time, but it's this interesting thing of mind matter, but internally, right?
Right.
So I'm not saying Michelle can go lift a mountain or something like that, or I can lift a building, but in a moment where we stop, we don't think about, we do, right? So words, Michelle's talking about words. I'm a big advocate of words now, because here's what I realize. I'm always asking people, what do they mean? Because my assumption of words and what somebody else assumes as words could, it may mean different thing. That's why we use the word perception, perspective, right?
Yeah.
So when Michelle says, because I know my says, when Michelle talks about energy and vibration, I know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Somebody else might go, oh, great, and whatever. They may have a different thing. Somebody talks about religion. I don't care, any religion.
Yeah.
If depending on the God of your understanding, experience and education or whatever, information, right? We'll come up with a preconceived notion. I shared this last week. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday. When we were younger, living in Scarborough, Ontario, she worked at a gas station. The gas pumps are there. It's that little thing in between where they just paid. It wasn't like a store.
Oh,
And she
yeah.
got robbed by two young black men. And she was triggered and fearful every time she saw a black person. It'd be like somebody bitten by a dog, right? So this idea of how we communicate our thoughts, understanding, convictions, beliefs, whatever that is,
Yep.
be with all of us, be patient. If you don't, this is free. We're not charging for this. If you're not sure what somebody means, then it's okay to ask a question. Like I do that a fair amount in counseling, because I don't want to make an assumption.
Right.
But here's a question to you, Michelle, who asked me all the questions.
Okay.
So you mentioned the statements about saying we're awesome.
Right.
So, and I have my thoughts and idea, but why do you think people have a hard time saying like a positive positive words to themselves? What do you think? Some of the reasons, there's a lot.
Yeah, no, I think it's because their little voice in their head argues with it and tries to cancel it out for a variety. So that could be a limiting belief that, maybe, or a habit that you're in of maybe always telling yourself, say, just for an example, always telling yourself, whether it's reflex or not, I'm stupid. And then when something comes up where it's the opportunity to say I'm smart, you struggle with that because it conflicts, right? It with the other things that are going on in your head. And you're right when you were saying about flexing that mental muscle, you have to cancel out these limiting beliefs. You have to have a statement to conflict with it, but that's also believable, right? So you can't go from believing that you're stupid because your mom always told that, not your mom, not whatever. I'm just using that for an example. So if you had a parent that always said you weren't good enough or you're stupid, you need a statement that you can slowly over time have comfort with, and then go from, you're not going to go from I'm stupid to, well, I could go to university and do surgery, what, something like that, right? It has to be a realistic transition. That's why Yeah, you just want to be really careful how you play it out because it needs to be something that you can qualify to. Like if you have a limiting belief, just for a blanket one of I'm not worthy. So then you stop and you break that down and you go, okay, so I feel like, and I say, I'm not worthy whenever an emotional thing happens. So let's go back to I tried to get a job. I didn't get it. You got it. You got the job. So, so I could walk out of that and without even, and this is how you know it's a limited belief. It's the first thing that comes into your head is that, well, of course I didn't get it. I'm not worthy. So then if you take that sentence and you break it down, then start thinking about, okay, if I believe that I'm not worthy, how would my relationships look? How would my workplace look? Right? I am worthy. I'm worthy of a good relationship. I'm worthy. And this is me just like speaking. I'm worthy of being an equal partner. I'm worthy of a job that respects me and hopefully promotes me and pays me a fair dollar. Let's just say it that way. So a lot of times we're lying to ourselves and it's like a record on skip. If anybody's not old enough to know what a record is, please message us. So it's like a record on skip that we're just so used to saying it. It comes out and we've tied some belief to it, but we've never really broke it down, right? We've never really like that whole thing with the me throwing out the food and feeling guilty, when I look at it and I think, okay, am I worried about 50 cents worth of beef? I don't know if that's a thing, but 50 cents worth of beef versus me being at my goal weight. Obviously, the goal weight wins, right? But it's so interesting. Why do I feel those emotions of guilt? Just scraping it off. And it's so funny because I was talking to my son, Robert, your nephew, one day, and I was just having an aha moment about that. And I said, Robert, it's so funny because we raise the grandchildren way differently than I raised my kids, which is way differently than the way I was raised. So I said to him, isn't it funny that with Alice and Xavier, we don't overfill their plates? And if they're done, I just take their plate. I don't think quite twice about it. I throw that stuff out. It's only my own plate that I feel guilty. And I said, so I'm so glad that we're breaking that pattern. And he says, what's funny? He said, with me, I'm telling him, I feel guilty any food I'm throwing out. He says, what I learned growing up, and this is just me being me, this is just, it is what it is. He says, I don't feel guilty throwing out most food. He says, but I feel guilty throwing out meat because I always knew, and this is me, the way I raised them, I always knew meat was more expensive. So
Yeah.
right? So we're doing better, three generations in, but it's interesting how it was all the food, now just the expensive food, and hopefully Alice and Xavier have no problem throwing it all out if needed. But it's funny, right?
Here's the funny thing. So it's like I'm going to take my son he loves Dune, the movie Dune, sci-fi type thing, whatever, right? So my son's 17, so I think this week I'm going to go take him to see the second Dune. So, but this whole like if you watch movies like Lord of the Rings or different things, like understanding backstory, right? But here's a funny thing with that, right? So I'm going to talk about what you said about awesome. So for me, like I said, and I'm learning for me to not overreact, but not make an assumption. But when I owned restaurants and I'd have salespeople come in, I hate salespeople. Here's a funny thing: what do we call the bad salespeople? Oh, they're like a used car salesman. I know some really good used car salesmen. They're really good guys, right? But it's just assumption. It's assumption of being manipulated or coerced to do something you don't want to do or think the way you don't want to think, right? So this wrestle with our what you said about the food as an example with Robert and you, because you would probably say to yourself, I would never want him to go through what I went through with food waste or all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's got to do with our two key words. It's perceptional value and perspective value. See, you can say, and I'm not putting everybody in the same boat, so please, nobody hear this, right? You may say it's really important to help the poor. So Michelle shared something before here, and she doesn't she doesn't have to prove anything to me. I know my sister, right? But she talked about this thing she's able to do to help raise some money for the poor, right? For food, right? And that doesn't mean she's better than Joe, Mitzi, Tom, whoever, whatever. But if we say this is a value, this thing is about mental wellness, right? And it's about holistic wellness, but we're talking about mental wellness, which crosses over to everything. It's so important to us. We're not just saying words. We're putting in the, we have life experience, and we're still life learners, right? So Michelle said, when we use the term, we're awesome, we're great. You can use whatever word you want. You don't have to. You can, if you want to get Michelle to make a T-shirt. We're all awesome. Do it. Yeah. She like it. But it's the perception of value, right? So it's easy to be in agreement with like-minded people. And one of my, no, I'm not going to go there. I was going to share something, but I'm not. That'll be another time.
Okay.
I wrestle with, this is to do with the cheesy salespeople. I wrestle with, and I'm not talking about faith. It could be faith. I wrestle with religious or self-elevating personalities. I have a hard time with it.
Right.
And that doesn't mean I don't like strong people or strong personalities, or I love that. I actually love that. But there's something about when we make people feel like, they just snuck over the wall. And sorry, Donald Trump taking a shot at you, but whatever. But not against Donald. But it's this thing is that we're all important, and we're all on a journey, and we all have the opportunity to influence each other. So Michelle and I share what we share in the group. There's 15 people now, I think, Michelle. We're getting up there. But in it, we learn from you as much as hopefully we share stuff that is important.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to learn. One of the other stories I read years and years ago was a story of a I'll use an example. Are you a farmer, Michelle?
Farmer.
Yep. I didn't think so. You know where ground beef comes from, right?
I do. I go to the farmer's market. How's that?
Do they have cows there? Okay. So do you know what they do to keep cows in a pen? You know what they do with electric fence, right?
Yep.
They put up electric fence, cow touches against it, gets jolted, right? Or a dog collar, which whatever, right? So what happens is eventually they can take that fence down and that cow won't go past, right?
Right.
Brainwashing, right? Okay. So that's limiting belief. I think it's so healthy to ask ourselves questions, going, okay, this is where I'm at. I don't want to be stuck. Like in this group chat, we'll put the question on after this or tomorrow, whatever.
Yeah.
Tell us something, share something that you go this next year. I want to achieve this. It doesn't have to be a practical monetary thing. It could be self-value. It could be for your kids, your grandkids, your neighbor, your street, the food bank. It could be for anything. There's no wrong thing. But all of a sudden, by saying these words, and we all know this too, there's power. There's power in reading something. There's power in speaking something, and there's power in hearing something. So this thing of however you wake up in the morning, and I tell my daughter who's working through some tough stuff, but my eldest is a 30-year-old daughter, and I said, I'm going to go see her in 2 weeks. I said, honey, Aunt Michelle's not here to do this, but I'm putting tape on your bathroom mirrors to say that you are awesome, you've got this, blah, 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 because she's had a tough year, right? And she's dealt with social anxiety and some other stuff, right? We get to lean up against each other. We get to lift each other up. We get to encourage each other. And we don't do it because we don't leave people behind. We may have to move on. We can't fix everybody.
No.
Hard enough time trying to figure ourselves out. But I do believe the first step on limiting beliefs and this stuff is being able to look in the mirror going, okay, I suffer, say, with depression. We've given tools on depression,
Yeah.
music, sunlight, tanning bed, whatever, all these things, water, like,
Yeah,
we're not trying to fix you. We're trying to help you on this journey.
that's right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing we need to acknowledge. Okay, so two things. Number one, when you're doing the self-reflection, do not say to yourself, what's wrong with me? Okay, do not do, yeah, that's right. Boo, 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 boo. Don't say that. But be honest and true. But I think we also, and again, not eliminating anybody who's watching from a different generation, but I think we also need to acknowledge it's very rare to work in the same company for, a gazillion years and then retire from the same job you started with. We live in a world that has multiple monogamous relationships, not at the same time, but back to back. So it's common to, have a couple exes or meet somebody later in life or be single. It's a different world that way, more accepting. The other thing
Yeah.
is regarding careers. Since I've been an adult, I was a phone solicitor, I was a dish girl, I worked as a waitress for 10 or so years supporting my kids. Then I worked office administration after I went to college. Then now I'm a wellness coach. I also do customer service, all sorts of different things. It's all through my one same life. So I think a lot of times, because of those limiting beliefs of you should have a strong career with a good pension, you're going to get a watch and a briefcase. That's not the world that we live in. So they say the average person is going to wear, I think, 6 different hats throughout their. So accept that and be like, this is the chapter I'm on now, right? This is the career I have. With me at this point, with my wellness coaching, I'll do that till I drop because I love it. But like with my other 9 to 5 job or 10 to 6:30 job, and I've even told my manager, 9 years and 6 months or whatever it is, I'm retiring. Like, right? I'm all about putting in time and, maybe racking up some money I can spend later on. But I think that shift makes a really big difference that's
No.
just not the world we live in anymore. It's not.
Another movie, sorry, and I'll get back to what you're saying, but you triggered a movie. Another movie to look up. It's called The Van. It's about this woman,
A van.
older woman lives in this van.
Oh,
The power of story. First of all, don't believe your story's all negative, right?
right.
As me and Michelle have shared bits and bobs of our story, and maybe one time we'll share a bit more just because people are listening to us, right?
Sure.
My story, like I in my earlier life, earlier in life, I've spent time in jail in Canada and the States.
Yep.
I was involved with some different groups with drugs, right? And I know like it's easy, like it's so easy. Like I know I deal with some guys that are recovering alcoholics, right? And it's so easy to devalue themselves, or I mean, some of them need to not be in the home. There's obvious different things like that, but some of them, like, you can't even get to step one if you're not going to believe that you're worth the work,
That's
right?
right.
So we're not all A, B, or C. So if we understand, and you've said this a few times in all of our talks, we're important, we're valuable. One of the things I realize, we all have a sphere of influence.
Oh, yeah.
You may not realize, I have more people who I thought, like, I never did anything nice to you, that say, man, like, I just watched you from afar in a coffee shop, or say that, like this is years ago, playing music or talking or whatever, right? And I'm amazed of how many people are listening when they're not our audience.
That's right.
We and so I believe there's opportunity for goodness in all of us. You have to believe it in yourself first, and then you have to be willing to do the work. And don't beat yourself up when, like Michelle said, we don't have cheat days. If today you go, man, I'm gonna eat that whole darn pizza. I need it. I want it. I don't even need it. I want it, right? What are
Chips
you eating there,
right
Cookie?
here. Got some
Yeah,
chips
there you go.
right here to go with my apple juice.
Yeah. So, but if we learn to see, if we learn to be gentle and kind to ourselves, we're more than likely to pass that on, right? I would tell people who worked on like people working with smoking as an example. I smoked, oh my word, 2 packs a day. I don't know if you know this, Michelle.
Mm.
Export A plain, non-filter,
Ooh,
2 packs a day from the ages of 14, maybe into my 20s.
wow.
I'm anyways, I haven't smoked in 30 some years, but anyways, I have people that they have this vision of oh, I'm going to quit for, like, they get the big picture of the rest of their life. I say no, dummy it down. You know what? Quit the next cigarette. Here's the idea: when you lie to yourself and say you're not worth anything, and you base your worth on what people, previous partners, bosses, the TV, being a minority, non whatever it is,
Yep,
don't believe the BS.
that's right.
If you said this the first time we did this, if you would understand the miracle of how all of this works genetically and organs, like it's mind blowing, right?
Yep.
That's your an invaluable object. You're so important, and we go through things that we need help. I'm dealing with a fellow who's working through schizophrenia.
Hmm.
Just happened. Just happened in the last 6 months. Businessman, nice guy, fairly well-to-do. Family doesn't know what to do. They're lost.
Yep.
So in working, he's seeing a professional psychologist and medication stuff, but just working with him in support.
Yep.
It's that take a breath reminder. Don't beat yourself up. You ate a bag of chips while we were talking. Don't. You talked about jobs, right? I understand this. If you apply to be a brain surgeon and you don't have the schooling, you might not get that job. It's okay.
That's right.
That job doesn't define you. You know what? Find out what you want to do. Me and Michelle, when we decided to do this, it was basically a improv. Say, hey, what about this? Hey, let's do it, right? We're not on Joe Rogan. Are we on Joe Rogan next week
Not
or the week
yet.
after?
Yeah, 2
No,
weeks
not yet, right?
after Easter.
But I'm probably going to do things about helping people in our mental wellness um, long past I'm 65,
Right.
70, or whatever, because I've learned so much from others, and I've journeyed this, and I'm not fooled that when I get older, where our bodies will eventually break down unless there's some type of drug I don't know about. But I'm actually okay with old age. See, I didn't want to go old. I didn't want to get old before when I was younger. And you know what, Michelle? I didn't want to get old. So you know what? I asked myself, why didn't I want to get old?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
Why? Why is it hard for you to believe you're awesome?
right.
Why? Don't give your brain a cramp.
Yep.
Don't be scared of yourself, but go, I wonder why wasting food was important. And not that, like, being frugal is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but when you feel the food is more important than you,
Right.
you define your value based on a carrot, a head of
Right.
cabbage,
Exactly.
bacon, right?
Yep.
So I do think, with going back to the limiting beliefs, if there's anything you find that you want to share, like some stuff we should share, we can share a bit more, like information papers. We've done a little bit of that, but
Sure.
in that, if there's anything you guys want that we can help you with, if you have questions about the mindset of limiting beliefs and some stuff Michelle shared about this, you can flood the chat.
Yes, please.
Michelle and I will not be offended.
That's right. Absolutely. I totally agree. I'm just going to go back for a second. I'm going to tell you something funny. So I also smoked, Tom. I started smoking when I was 17, strictly because my boyfriend smoked and it gave me something to do in the smoking area. Totally stupid idea. But I smoked for 17 years, which is interesting because I remember my dad, who is a big time smoker. He was a British Navy guy, always smoked 2 packs a day, Du Maurier regular. And I remember him saying, okay, you're smoking. He wasn't happy. And him saying, you're smoking, don't smoke for more than half your life, or it's going to be harder to quit. For whatever reason, that stuck in my head. He died when I was 25, so he'd already passed. I got to the 17th year of smoking. I talked about quitting smoking for 2 full years, and I would say to people, oh, I'm going to quit. I'm just not ready yet mentally. And my aha moment was I was having a cigarette before I went to do something. And I basically was rearranging my schedule to fit the cigarette in. Of course, I've been doing that for 17 years. I didn't have the aha moment. And that moment was that cigarette controlled me. I was literally revolving. And then I started thinking, oh, every day I did my get ready for work schedule around the cigarette. I, planned my breaks around everything was around the cigarette. That gave me the power to quit because I was like, I was not letting anybody else control me. That was definitely part of my mindset. So I wasn't going to let a cigarette control me either. And I ended up quitting. But I needed that moment of perspective of realizing of all the things I'm doing in my life, working, grocery shopping, eating, feeding 3 children. I'm scheduling in a cigarette. That's funny,
Yeah.
right? Funny.
So here's the funny thing. It's revelation, right? So I'm going to ask my sister, we'll finish up here in a few minutes, but
Yep.
what year did you do Hugs Across Canada? We talked about this last time,
2015.
2015.
Yep.
So when you came out here after doing all of your stuff and your journey, which you need to write a book or something on it or do something, a story. Again, I think the power of story is so important. Do you remember me and you and your daughter? Except we have a picture that I always say it's Tammy's daughter, Crystal's daughter, but it's Nicole.
Nicole,
Right?
yeah.
So remember where that picture was taken?
Is this in BC? That one on the beach? Or
That was on the Pacific Ocean.
yes, yes.
Had you ever been to the Pacific Ocean before?
No, absolutely not.
So we went to White Rock, for those that have been up to BC or not. And this whole idea of limiting beliefs. And so it doesn't even have to be with kind of a fix me, better me, right?
Right.
If you're only like Michele, I remember this probably more, but Michelle's in this journey. I remember the first time coming through the Rockies, I almost had a heart attack.
Love it.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, the roads were worse, right? But you see this and you're amazed. Like I've had the privilege of going overseas. I was in Greece and seeing the Acropolis and the Temple of Science, seeing this world that's beyond my world, seeing things beyond my understanding, or like I've seen pictures in the books, right? And what happens is when we begin to believe there's more to us than yesterday.
Yep.
Like right now, I'll finish with this up. Right now in our world, in Canada, and it's all over the news. I watch the news off and on. I'm not manipulated by the news. And like Michele said about the smoking, she hated the fact that something was controlling her. That's what we're talking about in all these talks about our mind. Don't let your mind control you. Now be open. Like we have limitations. I can't jump higher than a building. I just can't. I wish I could, but I can't. I'm not Superman, right?
Yep.
But the thing is this, right? If you're willing to, I call being present or have your eyes wide open, right? If you're willing, and what you have to do is you have to discard fear.
Right.
You've got to be able to, even if you're fearful. I was talking about a course. I talked about phobias. In the phobia course, I'm not saying if you got my daughter and granddaughters will phone me. I'm 12 hours away if there's a spider in the house. I can't help you. They hate spiders.
Call the fire department.
But so I was telling my daughter about this thing about phobias, about believing what's not real. That's kind of really what phobia is. Yeah. So with acrophobia, what'll happen is, if you're scared of spiders, it's okay. You're allowed to be, right? But what'll happen when they work through helping people overcome acrophobia, what they'll do is one of the therapies is they'll take a picture of a spider, show you the picture, and people and the coach or a therapist will say, okay, that picture can't hurt you. like it can't hurt you, right? So it's just the picture. Now, I don't like spiders with 37 gazillion eyes, and I don't want it crawling on me. I don't like it, but not going to take me down. I don't believe, right? And but that mindset of understanding is believing that whatever we're going through right now, everybody 15, 18, whatever there's going on now, and we'll put a couple of questions, but what what stops you from reaching your goal and belief? And again, it could be mental, financial, could be vocational, it could be family. Maybe I do a lot of work with people that are broken relationships, men with, you know, with family, right? And I don't think, like, I think, didn't we talk about forgiveness?
We did.
We did.
We did.
And we talked about forgiveness doesn't mean you just take that same old crap,
That's
but
right.
it's actually for yourself. So this journey that we're on and talking about limiting beliefs, resetting our mindset, I'm throwing this out there. Let it be today. Like, let it be tomorrow. Think about what you want different in this next 3, 6 months, a year, and think about how you're going to get there.
Right.
Then tell yourself, verbalize it. Say, you know what? I want a raise.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. I want to be interviewed by Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
which I don't, right? And you know what I want, Michelle? So I'm saying this right now, so you can laugh at me. So an advocate for mental wellness, a famous Canadian comedian. Think of somebody. He's bald. He used to have a character called Bobby. His
Oh,
first name's Howie.
yeah.
Howie Mandel.
No deal. Deal or no deal guy.
Howie Mandel.
There we go.
Howie Mandel does a lot of work with mental health. A lot of work. I've had some different connections, responses, thanking him and stuff. Right. I hope one of my goals, Howie Mandel. There you go. Thanks, Lawrence. I hope my desire within this year, 2024, that we can get somebody like Howie on our lives, and that we interview them and talk.
Right.
Now, if I just wishy-washy, then I'm hoping that, I don't know. It's not realistic. We keep doing what we're doing, but if you, there's another saying: be the change you want to be. Right. So if you want something, if you want a healthy relationship, you just got rid of a bad, broken relationship. Get help and support to understand, so you don't go fishing in that same pool.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And you get what you tolerate. It sounds harsh, but like, if you want better, you have to have a plan. You just can't. And as much as, like, I believe in the law of attraction, if you're sitting in the basement, your new employer is not going to come knocking at the door finding you, right? There has to be some action involved, some inspired action. So there's things, and I don't care who you are, there's nobody that's like 100% satisfied with everything and doesn't want more in something, or would like to add some traveling or family time or whatever that is. So yeah, I agree. Set a plan, make a decision, create some deadlines. They don't have to be permanent. Yeah, we're gonna ask Howie, Nadine. I totally like your thinking. That's my girl, Nadine. So make a plan. You're all my people, just saying. Make a plan, right? Make a plan and figure out, like, what do I have to do that's going to align with where I want to be, and put yourself in that mindset of, I am worthy. I'm good enough. I'm just as worthy of anybody else who's walking in those steps today.
And find people for, like, don't live in some weird bubble. Find people that will champion you, will cheer you on, that won't bring you down. Quote for the day, sister. Do you have a quote for the day?
I just want to, you got me thinking of something else. You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? You want to have some to quest to be more like, and some that you're sort of leading. Quote for the day: nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. Mic drop. Hey, I want to share a happy thought with everybody before we go. Here's a funny thing. My granddaughter's 6, Gemma, and I work like on the phones over there on my other desk, the other job. So we're babysitting her today. She goes into the playroom. She gets a keyboard that's broken. It's not connected to anything. She brings it. She's in a call center. She's booking hotel rooms like her Nana. I can hear her. And then all of a sudden she goes, "Oh, I forgot my password."
Oh
And she
no.
starts hammering on the keys. And then I'm in between. I'm like, "Gemma, are you okay over there?" And she's like, "Yeah, Nana, I can't remember my password." And then about 45 seconds later, after some hammering, she's like, "Oh, good, I got it."
Oh, I love it.
That's the
I
world
love
we
it.
live in. So she made me this picture I want to share with everybody. Oh, I might have to turn my background off. So you're gonna see my pictures behind of all the grandchildren. So she made me this today. So when you think about feeling positive and having things around you that give you joy, like my other artwork, you can see, then this will be my newest thing for the fridge. I
So
encourage you all to do the
if
same.
you're doing if you want to send Michelle art, she will post her mail address because she likes art. And and
Do it.
speaking of art, I shared earlier. Me and Michelle had talked about before. I shared earlier a little video of a song I wrote pre-COVID. Actually, it was
I had
pre
my radio show.
pre yeah, it was pre the ugly U.S. political. He's a bad man. He's a bad man. Hillary and Clinton, Trump, and all that stuff, right? And the first line is kind of crazy out here. But the reason I shared it, I didn't share it that I'm signing autographs. That's not why I shared it. I shared it because we we don't want to lie to ourselves and think that we're going to be like the next, I don't know, Matthew McConaughey, whatever, right? You want to be comfortable and confident in the things that you do well. And if you don't tell yourself that you do well, like I always tell people, there's a million musicians better. There's a million I'm probably better. I've been playing for 40 some years, right? But the story of that song and the stories you write, I had this epiphany. I don't know if this is going to sound weird here. I actually believe there's people in our group right now. This is my little pop of wisdom, of wisdom, not wismus. I said
Whatever.
Christmas and wisdom. I have this sense that some of you write, and maybe you journal, maybe you write poetry, maybe you write stories, maybe you write songs. I want to encourage you. Um, take a risk. If there's something that you write that's doesn't have to be real personal, but personal, share it with us.
Yeah, please.
Share it with us because there's something about feeling safe in a safe place to do that. So, anyways, that's all I got.
All right. That's all I got too. Perfect. So everybody, please come back next week. Friendly reminder, we start at 8 Eastern Standard Time, 5 Tom time, we're going to call it. So feel free to join us. We do have everything like about a couple hours from now. I'll take the recording of this. I'm putting it on a YouTube page for a variety of Nadine, send us something. Nadine's written 6 books of poetry. Amazing.
Yeah, I knew somebody was writing.
Yeah, right. You're welcome, Florence. Very good. So, yeah, if you want to either share the videos, because they're not going to stay forever on Facebook. So feel free to share or rewatch. And again, yeah, we want you involved. So we do this for us, but we also do it for you. And it's a great way for us to give back to humanity and our friends and coworkers, because we've all invited you. So we know you somehow. So please feel free to share and contribute and tune in next week. We're going to do it all again. Same bat channel, same bat time, right?
Yes, Robin.
Oh, all right. See everybody. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.